Morning. The world we're living in is changing all the time. Some change is good for us and some change is not so good. The other day, I was reading a Forbes magazine. That's a real thing. I can read Forbes magazines. And in business, they discovered that 38% of people like change and 62% of people didn't like change at all. Not surprising, really. Their idea was that it depends a lot on the person's previous experience of change. See, if a person has had a mostly positive experience of change, then they would be more likely to accept change in a positive way. And if a person has had mostly negative experiences of change, then they would tend to view change as being negative. Now, I'm not sure about all that, but let me share with you one of my experiences of change. When I was a kid, now I was about, 8, 9-ish, something like that. I was fascinated by a white box in the corner of my neighbour's backyard. One day, my younger brother and I was doing some exploring, as you do. I noticed the white box sitting in the back corner of the yard. And as kids do, we went over and had a look. Hey, check it out. It looked harmless enough anyway. Well, so I thought I would just lift the lid up, have a little look inside. After all, what could possibly go wrong? Well, as soon as I lifted the lid up, I knew I'd made a horrible mistake because all of a sudden there were bees everywhere. Now, I was probably a little bit older than my brother, so I was a little bit old enough to work out that I would need to split and split fast because this was going to be a really dangerous place to be hanging around. My brother, on the other hand, really had no idea what was going on straight away. He didn't look in the box, he was standing behind me. For a little while, there he was in confusion. So by the time he cottoned on to what was happening, I was tearing off for home. First time I've ever beaten him in a race. The bees in turn, sensing a threat to their hive, decided to attack the nearest enemy, which turned out to be my brother because I was halfway home. When I got home, with my screaming brother somewhere behind me, we were met by frantic parents wondering what all the commotion was about. Well, then I informed that we were just checking out the neighbour's white box in his backyard. They knew what was there. They leapt into action, rescued my brother who was covered with bee stings. Oh my goodness, he had them up his nose. I shouldn't be laughing about this, but he had them up his nose, in his mouth, in his eyes, everywhere. Surprisingly, I was fairly unscathed, much to the disgust of my parents, who naturally assumed it was all my fault anyway. Which, of course, is the problem with being the older brother, because I'm supposed to set the example. My poor brothers really had no hope. Quite a few things changed that day. Firstly, I learnt that I really shouldn't take my younger brother anywhere because he's just going to get me in trouble. Secondly, my parents decided I would require a whole new level of discipline. That to me seemed quite harsh at the time. And My younger brother, he never really trusted anyone again. That's the case even today. And of course, we all developed a new respect for bees. And we weren't allowed to go in the neighbour's backyard. The point I'm trying to make is that decisions I made that day and the consequences of those decisions changed the way I saw the world. The change is neither positive or negative, really. It's just things that happen. I've discovered that it is up to myself how I cope with the changes that happen around me. I like the beehive. Even though it was a negative experience for me, well, mostly my brother, he was okay, by the way. It also had a positive impact as well. I learned probably the hard way, which has sort of been the story of my life, not to rush into things like a bull at a gate, to think about the decisions I make before making them. This has always been a hard lesson for me to learn, as I have a tendency to rush in, be a bit of a risk taker, to a point, because I still to this day don't like bees, and I've developed an allergy to them. Life is full of change. And we can choose to look at change as a positive thing or look at change as a negative thing. Change has been our past. Change is happening in the present. Change is our future. Revelations 21 verse 5 says, "He who is seated on the throne said, I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." Let's all embrace the changes that are going on all around us, because realistically we can't do anything about it or stop it. Let's not have fear and then develop anxieties, that get the better of us. Let's not close our eyes and hope that everything will just stay the same, because guaranteed it won't. We need to open our eyes wide and accept the changes in our lives, because things will change, whether we like it or not. Change is not positive or negative, it's just simply change. It is what it is. We can't blame anyone for it. We can't hide it. We can't pretend it doesn't exist. We can't fight against it, hoping to make things the same as it was before. The good old days. Change is normal. And it's the way of all life. For us to be normal, we need to accept change, embrace change, sometimes even be the change. Bees are negative when they protect their hive, but the positive side of bees is the pollination and the growth of plants we eat. So let's look at change the same way. Sometimes we feel the pain that change brings, but ultimately change brings about learning and a new growth. Let's not be afraid of change, and let's not be afraid to change. Thank you for listening to me today, and have a great and blessed week.